Where were you born?
in Calgary.
The name of your parents?
To my dad, Lawrence Branch Johnson. My mother, Jean, it was Frances Jean Lamont.
That she always went by Jean, didn't she?
Yes, she went by that. Frances was my grandmother's name.
Oh, she's named for her too. Your sister's name?
Margaret Jean.
Margaret Jean. Now, I'd like to know the names of your grandparents too, if you can remember them, both your mother's parents and your father's parents.
My dad's father was Everett Cyril Johnson, and his grandmother was Mary Bigland.
Okay. Good.
And mother's grandfather was Donald Lamont.
Very good. And maybe I'll stop right there. I will ask you questions about your own family, the children you had and your husband a little later on. I'm just going to back up a bit now, and I'm going to ask you to try to remember the stories that you heard about your grandparents. And maybe we could start with your father's parents. And can you tell me something about them? Mary Bigland, for example.
Mary Bigland came from England. She was a nurse. She was an RN.
Yes.
And so grandfather had had a wreck. And he was in hospital, and she was a nurse there.
Yes.
And that's how they met, actually.
A wreck? What, you mean on a horse?
Somewhere between a horse and a cow, there was a...
And they met at the hospital.
Yeah, that's where
goodness.
Where they met.
And that was quite some time ago, wasn't it?
Apparently grandfather was quite dashing in his youth.
Yes.
And a lot of women thought he was all right. But
I've seen a picture of him.
But Granny wouldn't be, she didn't fall for everybody, you know.
And where did they go to live first? Was it to the Bayou or?
On those ranches, or the Danecourt Ranch.
Yes.
That was French, the Danecourt.
Mm-hmm.
And they were French people. And he ran the ranches for them. And the Bayou for a while. And a lot of those ranches in the south and southeast.
He was quite well thought of, I believe.
Yes, he was
A good rider.
He's a good horseman, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, he was, he couldn't stand anybody that abused their horse. And this one man was notorious, and Grandpa often mentioned him to his friends and so forth. And one day, somehow or other, he and this man got in a fight over this. He was abusing a horse, and Grandfather wouldn't put up with it. So they got into a fight, and Grandfather knocked him down. And then he got scared and left in a hurry.
Now, where did your grandfather come from originally?
He came from Virginia.
And is that why he's sometimes called the Virginian?
Yes, that's why. Because that was where he was born. It's in Virginia.
Very good. When did they move up towards Cochrane, your grandparents?
Well, they lived at where the Baja Tinda is now.
Oh, yes.
And that's where they came from. They lived down on the Bow River, 7 miles west of Cochrane. And that was Dad's soldier settlement property. And it was a half section. And Dad didn't particularly want to live there, so he leased the ranch from his cousin. And that was called the Laycock place. Her name was Ruth Laycock, that he rented the ranch from. And so that's where we were. That's the first place I remember. I remember the river place vaguely.
Okay, this is where you went to live there too, did you?
Well, at the river place was, we were close to there at the time I was born. They lived there, you see. And then they moved to the Laycock place in the 30s. And it belonged to Ruth Laycock, a cousin of Dad's.
When you say the river place, is that the Bow or the Ghost?
It was the Bow.
The Bow, okay. I just wasn't too sure.
It's 7 miles west of Cochrane, and you just cross Coal Creek, and there's a road lance on your left. It's down that road lance is where the house was.
Is the house still there?
I couldn't tell. I think it is, but I'm not sure. But Mother had a photograph of the house. That she loved it down there. She hated to move. She didn't want to come to Laycock Place and stuff like that. But she did.
To go back to E.C. Johnson, your grandfather, when he came to Cochrane, did he become a butcher?
Yes, he ran
Yes.
a butcher shop.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah,
And did they live, but
they lived in Cochrane.
they lived in Cochrane then?
Yes, they did. I can remember all the time staying with Granny. But Mother's mother, she lived just west of town, just cross Coal Creek and down that, lived down there. And, I adored that grandmother. She was the most wonderful grandmother.
Isn't it lovely?
And to be able to stay with her was just heaven to me. And she would harness up her old team and go trotting to Cochrane for her groceries. And she'd always driven a horse. She had her mare, Maud. I heard all kinds of stories where Maud was involved.